The leaves are starting to turn in the nation's capital, which means that we're in the middle of our fall sports season at the University of the District of Columbia. The men's soccer team has been flirting with the top 25. The women's cross-country team is training and competing hard. The women's tennis team is trying to chase down a conference title. And basketball season will be here before we know it. Today on Firebird Nation Sports Update, we'll visit with UDC tennis coach Dickie Mahaffey and his star student athlete Maxime Duijst. We'll also hear from UDC women's basketball assistant coach, senior women administrator, and assistant athletic director for academics, Robin Williams. All that and more coming up, so stay right there. Hello, this is Firebird Nation Sports Update, your inside look at the University of the District of Columbia Athletics. I'm your host, Matt Rienzo. There's a lot going on in UDC Athletics, so stick around to hear how the Firebirds are battling in 2014. The Firebird men's soccer team is currently 5-2-1 overall and ranked number 5 in the East Region in Division II. The Firebirds have also been ranked as high as number 21 in the nation. 3 of their 4 wins have come against teams that advanced to the NCAA tournament a year ago, including the season opening win versus Slippery Rock, last year's number 1 seed out of the Atlantic region. Sophomore forward Felix Angerer leads the team with 13 points on 5 goals and 3 assists. Meanwhile, junior goalkeeper Lewis Connor ranks 2nd in the East Coast Conference with 38 saves. In women's tennis action, the Firebirds are currently 4-3 overall and 3-2 in the East Coast Conference. The Firebirds won 4 of their first 5 matches, but have currently lost 2 straight. 3 more ECC matches await as the UDC looks to qualify for postseason play for the 4th straight season. The Firebirds are paced by senior Maxime Duijst, who we'll visit with in just a few minutes. The women's cross-country team has competed in 2 meets thus far: the Hornet Invitational at Delaware State and the Cappy Anderson Invitational at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Junior Kamoy Mays has the team's best 5K time so far at 22 minutes and 50 seconds. Sophomore KTR Johnson was right behind her with the 2nd best individual time of the season, 22 minutes and 56 seconds. The Firebirds will compete in 2 more meets at Delaware State on October 3rd and October 17th. Then they'll wrap up the season at the ECC Championships in Rochester, New York. Look for the Firebirds track and field team to have another huge season indoor this winter. In basketball action, the Firebirds men's and women's teams open up the home slate with a big-time doubleheader on November 19th. The women take on Virginia State University at 5 p.m., and the men take on Bowie State at 7 p.m. Both games will take place in the sports complex at the UDC Van Ness campus. Circle November 19th and be sure to come out and watch the Firebirds take on 2 longtime rivals. We're going to take a short break, but when we return, we'll visit with our first guests, UDC tennis coach Dickie Mahaffey and tennis student athlete Maxime Duijst. So stay right there. Now I'd like to welcome UDC tennis coach Dickie Mahaffey and UDC tennis student athlete Maxime Duijst. Maxime, Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Matt.
Coach Mahaffey, let's start with you. You're in the middle of the women's tennis season. Tell us how it's going from your perspective, from the coach's perspective.
I'm very pleased with how the women's tennis team has competed so far this season. We're currently 4-3 and doing well, competing well, and I'm optimistic that we're going to qualify again for the East Coast Conference Championships later this month.
So you just came off the ITA tournament or ITA championships.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
The Intercollegiate Tennis Association regional tournaments are held every year. The country is divided up into regions, and we're a member of the East region. And this is an opportunity for all the member schools in the East region to participate in this tournament. And the champions of the main draws qualify for a small colleges championship in the middle of October.
So the ITA really sets up kind of the regional rankings for going through the rest of the season. Is that what its purpose is?
It kind of sets up a starting point. It gives all the coaches an opportunity to kind of evaluate where teams are and how they stack up against each other.
And I suppose there's ITAs going on throughout the country for the different regions as
Correct.
well. Great. And how did UDC fare at the ITAs?
We did well. We did well. The men's the men's number one doubles team advanced to the quarterfinals of the tournament and lost to the number 4 seed, but competed very well in that match.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Now, so like you said, the women's team is 4-3 overall.
Yes.
You compete in the East Coast Conference, as does every athletic program at UDC. And you've got 5 matches left, roughly, for the rest of the season. What are your thoughts on getting into the postseason? You have to be in the top 4 to get into the conference semifinals. So what are your thoughts on getting to that point?
At this point, I feel our chances are very good that we will qualify again this year for the East Coast Conference Championships. We have 2 big conference matches this coming weekend, Damon College on Friday and Roberts Wesleyan College on Saturday. And if we do well this weekend, that'll shore up our position in the conference championships.
Okay, now who appears to be the front runner out of the conference? Is there one team that's kind of leading the pack going into it?
NYIT is a very strong team in our conference
Yeah.
right now, yes.
Every year, them and Queens.
Well, the
seem
last
to
couple
be-
of years, it's been NYIT or Queens, yes.
Yeah. And then we got to get the Firebirds in there as well.
Absolutely. We're
Which
fighting our way back.
You've done, and that's a good segue to my next question. Is this is your 6th season here?
Yes.
You've had 5 full years, very successful years. The men's and women's team has made it to the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. The women's team won the ECC championship recently. You've had phenomenal student athletes who've won awards, academic awards, athletic awards in the conference. What do you attribute all that success to?
Just really good kids. I mean, at the end of the day, our student athletes have been very dedicated, not just to their competition and their hard work on the tennis court, but also in the classroom as well. It's not a lot of, as they say, teeth pulling to get them to study and work hard. And it's been a pleasure to work with the student athletes I've had over the last 6 years.
Yeah, and your student athletes really have exemplified the word student athlete. You've had phenomenal students in the mix and done very well in the classroom. So obviously, congratulations on that. Above and beyond all the other things that you've accomplished. So Maxime, let's turn it over to you. Just ask you a couple questions. How do you feel about this season from a player's standpoint, from a student athlete standpoint?
I think we've done very well until now, and I think we will be doing great this upcoming weekend and in the East Coast Conference semifinals. I hope we'll make it. As Coach said, we are playing for the 3rd or 4th seed. Of course, we hope the 3rd seed. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of my teammates. They've helped me a lot, and I helped them a lot as well, going through a lot of matches. And yeah, I think we did very well.
Good. Now, your thoughts on the postseason? You think you'll be able to get to that top 4?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. Well, good luck there. Now, you individually, it's a team sport, obviously, but there's a lot of individual components to it as well. 3 times you've been named 2nd team all-conference in the East Coast Conference, which is amazing. And I imagine you're going to have some accolades coming up this year as well. You've had a terrific career. How have you enjoyed playing tennis here at UDC?
It was a real challenge for me. I always played the 3rd or 4th single until now. So now I'm playing the 1st single, which has been a real challenge for me. There are no off days.
Because you graduated a lot of your teammates.
Yes,
from
they
last
graduated
year
a
and
lot.
the
So
previous
I really
year.
have to step on my game. And yeah, it's a real challenge, and I enjoy the challenge. It has been tough, but.
Well, you're doing well in that number 1 spot, that's for sure. Particularly to UDC and playing, with Coach Mahaffey and with your teammates. As you look back, you're a senior now and you move on after this year. When you look back at your time here, what are you going to think about and appreciate the most?
Just the time we spent all together, traveling, the tough times for all my teammates are from different parts of the world, so we're in the same boat, dealing with homesickness, playing without family here, so you kind of create your own little family within the team. So that's what I'm definitely gonna miss. Playing tournaments, competing, I'm gonna miss that for sure.
And that's one of the things I definitely was going to ask you later, but since you mentioned it, it really seems like the tennis team is a family. You have a really tight group of people on the men's and women's side. Is that something that you all collectively work on, or that just happens naturally?
I think that happens naturally. As I said, we're all from different parts of the world. We deal with the same stuff. It's definitely a lot of fun to be so diverse. You learn a lot of things from different cultures, or even neighboring countries. It's just been terrific to meet all these people.
Well, that's great. And you are from the Netherlands. How did you end up here at UDC?
I contacted coaches, and he was one of the first ones to respond, and he seemed very eager to meet me. And well, UDC is in the middle of DC, and I wanted to go to a big city. And I also saw there were a lot of international teammates, which also attracted me for going here.
Right.
So.
Good. And what's it like going to school and competing, but just in general going to school in the nation's capital? That must be an amazing thing.
It is. It was very tough in the beginning because it's, of course, not my first language. But you learn a lot from the people I work with, and I want to do something different than my friends back home, so that's why.
And one more question, and I'll turn it over to Coach Mahaffey. He's done an amazing job, as I mentioned earlier. What's it been like playing for him?
It's been real fun. It's a challenge. He pushes you to the limit.
That's what good coaches do, though.
Yeah. And I always wanted to do my best. I hope he agrees with that too. And he's a good leader. He always helped me. He always helped me when I needed it, and that's what I really appreciated.
That's great. Now, Coach, I'm going to let Maxime off the hook and ask you a couple questions. Aside from Maxime, whose success has been documented and with all the all-conference awards and whatnot, who are the student athletes who you're looking for on the women's side to kind of carry the load, and help her out down the stretch here?
Well, we have our junior Mona Luarisawan, who's very solid playing in the 2 position for us. Is very competitive, has played some extremely tough matches, pulled out some really good wins for us this year. And a freshman playing at number 3, Laura DeMonte, who's a very strong player, and I'm looking forward to seeing her step up and help continue to contribute to our success.
And I'm sure she will, and they all will.
Yeah.
Now, the women's team competes, their championship season is in the fall.
Yes.
And the men's team, which you coach the men as well, their championship season is in the spring, but they play some matches in the fall. It appears as though the men's team has a lot of firepower. Their team will be competing for real in the spring, but they're playing some matches now. Who are some of the guys we can look for on that side, and what do you think of that squad?
Well, we have our senior and captain, Simon Anderson, who's been a bedrock on the team for 4 years. We expect a lot from Simon. And as you know, we have 5 freshmen this year. So we have, all 5 are going to contribute in some way, shape, or form. We have Alexis Bagulan, Rock Bozic, Marco Feligioni, and Diego Pinto. And I'm expecting big things from all of them. Yes.
Well, that's great. And Maxime, the other day at the opening convocation for the university, the theme of the convocation was UDC, a global community. And they talked a lot about diversity, and they mentioned the fact that 10% of the UDC population of all the students comes from international background. And your team definitely has a ton of diversity. You've got student athletes from a lot of different countries, the U.S., et cetera. A lot of international flavor, and you mentioned that earlier, learning from each other, but is that something that you all realize and you appreciate?
I don't think we realize as much.
You just don't dwell on it.
Yeah, you dwell on it. And we learn all from each other, and we help each other when needed. For example, when I came, a lot of my teammates explained me how things work here in the US. And now I see my new teammates, the freshmen, for example. I know where they get stuck and help them moving forward from that point.
And some of your teammates who helped you along the way now are in graduate school here at UDC, and they're staying in the area, which is really a cool thing.
Yeah.
So now you're a biology major. What are your thoughts? What are you going to do when you graduate? Do you have any idea? Stay here, move home? What are your thoughts on career?
I'm not sure if I would stay or for a good go home, but I think I want to go into a graduate program. It doesn't really matter where, but into research, that would be great as well.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure you'll have tremendous success in whatever it is you choose to do, because you've done a great job here at UDC. So best of luck to you. And Coach, best of luck for the rest of the women's season and the men's season in the spring as well. So thanks to both of you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll visit with Assistant Athletic Director Robin Williams. We're now joined by UDC Assistant Director of Athletics for Academic Support, Senior Women's Administrator, and Assistant Women's Basketball Coach, Robin Williams. Robin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Robin, that's got to be the longest title I've ever heard in the history. So you're the Assistant AD for Academic Support.
Yes.
You're also the Senior Women Administrator, and you're also a Women's Basketball Coach.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. It's a lot, but they all blend together. It's just a different perspective now that I'm an administrator.
Yeah, so you were given this new role this past summer. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's very exciting. And now let's start with the Assistant AD for Academic Support. What exactly does that role entail?
Well, I'm basically the liaison between the students, student athletes, and the professors, as well as academic advising. So if there's any issue involving classes, professors, grades, the student athletes come to me first and we resolve it that way. So that's basically.
And also running the study halls and the things of that sort as well.
Right. I run study halls. I also handle travel letters, which is given to each student athlete to let the professors know when they'll be missing classes because of games.
So that communication between the administration and the professors is really important, and that's
Right.
essentially what you're working on.
Yes.
That's great, and you're cracking the whip, making sure they're all doing their work and
Yeah,
getting to
definitely.
class and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I assume you get a lot of help from the coaches. I mean, you are a coach, but
Right.
get help from the coaches working with you to make sure everything's done properly.
Yeah, I do get a lot of help from the other coaches, especially with the transition of having the kids get used to another person in this position. Because a lot of things that were done last year, they may not have been used to the way that I do it now. So it's been a transition with getting coaches to help out more, and also with giving the student athletes more accountability with study hall attendance and going to class and making sure that they also speak with their professors as well, just to get them more comfortable with going to their professors and building that relationship themselves. And then I'm just the fallback for when they really can't communicate. But at the same time, I also tell them whenever they speak with professors or academic advisors, just to let me know and let their coaches know so that we're all in the loop. But it's just a good way to help them build the confidence to go and talk to and speak to authority.
Well, that's important, that accountability, having them learn to do things for themselves.
Right.
Is certainly important. And also getting the coaches involved, because we all know that coaches are educators first,
Right.
especially at the high school and collegiate level. That's their main priority, is the academics and educating the student athletes.
Right.
So it's great that they're assisting with that. Yes. And the student athletes at UDC do very well in the classroom. We've talked about that before, boasted about that before on the show. They average over a 3.0 GPA collectively as a group in the department. And that's a credit to them and to the coaches, but to you and to your predecessor, Kendrick Green, who's in the job before you.
Right.
How are the student athletes able to do so well, given all their time demands and everything else?
Well, it starts out mainly with time management and just stressing to each student athlete that they have to prioritize. And you're a student athlete first, and then, student first, then you're an athlete. So you have to make sure that you schedule enough time for everything, because you're always going to have practice time, you're always going to have time for games and travel, but you have to make sure that you set your schedule up where you have enough time to knock out everything and do it successfully. One thing that I try to stress to the student athletes when making their schedules is don't try to overburden yourself. Or we have a lot of student athletes who are close to graduating and they may want to take 18 credits. And it's like, okay, that's a little bit too much. You have to figure out what's good for you and what you're going to be successful at. And then on the flip side, there are students who want to take the bare minimum. And in doing that, it doesn't leave them enough space for error. So if they mess up in a class, they're borderline of being ineligible because of their GPA.
Right, they have to meet a certain minimum requirement for classes in order to be
Right.
eligible to compete by NCAA rules and,
Right.
and things like that. So,
Yeah.
well, it sounds like you got a great handle on it, and they're lucky to have you in that role.
Thank
That's
you.
for sure. So now flip over to the women's basketball coaching side. What are your day-to-day responsibilities with that for people who don't really know what goes into it?
Well, it's My role that it has been for the past 4 seasons now has been mostly academics, as well as game day operations and preparation, practice preparation.
So there was a lot of overlap anyway. You were doing
Yeah.
that academic piece for just a smaller sample size of people.
Right. So a lot of the systems that I was using with just the women's basketball team, I've applied to all of the athletes in general.
That makes for a smooth transition. then.
Yeah, it wasn't as overwhelming as I thought it would be. Even though, I mean, once I started the position as administrator, it was pretty much 0 to 100 in the matter of maybe
Of a
2
day.
days. Yeah. So, but having that background with academics, with the women's basketball team, and having that be successful helped me to transition to this
So that's a
role.
lot to do on any given day, all the basketball stuff and the academics. How do you balance, how do you keep your head above water?
Well, I'm very organized. I'm a very organized person. So it's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of folders and labeling. And I make sure that I don't let the 3 jobs overlap. So when I'm in basketball practice, it's just basketball practice. Or when I'm doing study hall, it's just study hall. So I try not to let everything come together too much.
Well, that's great. Now, you also have a familiarity with this institution as you were a student athlete here at UDC,
Right.
class of 2008.
Yes.
What's it like being able to come back to your alma mater and coach and now be an administrator?
Well, it's great. I mean, it's something that I never thought I would be doing. Of course, I'm very happy to be in the position, and I'm proud to say that I'm an alumni, and now I'm coming back and doing what I've seen so many people before me do. But it's also interesting just having 3 different perspectives on UDC Athletics as a player, as a coach, and as an administrator now. And although they're
You've
different,
seen everything from
Yeah.
those 3 different angles.
right? And they're all different, but they also have, they're also parallel as well.
Well, you played for Jay Butler,
Yes.
while you were here, and now you work for him as, his assistant. What's it
Right.
like playing for Jay? And obviously, he's a great coach.
Yeah, I played for him for 3 years, and it was great. One thing that I automatically noticed in playing for Jay Butler is that he fosters that family atmosphere. When I came to UDC, I was transferring from a D1 institution, and it wasn't the most, the best experience for me. And in coming to UDC, it was definitely a change in relationship between coach and player, and it's pretty much the same now that I'm his assistant. He's very laid back, very
Not
very
on
cool.
game day, though.
Not on game day. On game day, he's pretty high strung, but he gets the job done, and he gets the most out of his players. And that's one reason why I decided to come back in 2010 to take the position.
Well, he's a phenomenal coach and had great teams here, and which is a good segue to my next question. Is you had a very good team last year. You all won the ECC championship.
Right.
Made it to the first round of the NCAA tournament. What can we expect from you guys this year?
Well, we plan on winning another ECC championship. We have 9 returning players, and we have 5 new players, a mixture of high school and transfer students. And we have a really good group who you can still expect to come to see very exciting games. We still have a very athletic team. And we have a really good group of young ladies who just can happen to know how to play ball really well. But in the classroom, they're strong students, they're good people, and you'll be hearing a lot of good things about us this year.
Yeah, I would expect you're right, and you'll get, if not win the ECC, get very close, and certainly make it to the NCAAs, and
Right.
hopefully do some damage this year. Last year, unfortunate first round exit, but I
Yeah.
think good things are ahead for the Firebirds women's basketball program.
Definitely.
So, now switching back to kind of your coaching role, but also your administrative role. You're definitely in a position of guidance and of leadership with so many young women and men,
Right.
with your role, student athletes. If you could tell them one thing, like a bit of encouragement, to kind of make them better students and better student athletes, what would that be?
My piece of advice would be to listen. Listen. I feel at the age that our students are now,
Low attention spans.
Yeah, low attention span, and they want something instant gratification. So they may not listen at this, they'll be getting information from their phone, they'll be talking to someone or on the computer at the same time.
Or all three.
Yeah, and in that, they're missing the message. So just sit and listen. Just listen to what someone has to say. Listen to what we're telling you, and you'll be fine.
Well, that's great. Now, a couple other things. You got your master's in sports management from Georgetown University.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was great. It was great. When I first came back to DC in 2010, I was researching master's programs to look into, and I found the one at Georgetown, Sports Industry Management program. And it was a relatively young program, but I heard so many good things about it. And in being in the program, I learned a lot and made a lot of good connections. The professors there are currently working in their field, so I got a whole bunch of knowledge.
And I imagine it helped springboard you into the position that you're in today.
Right,
having a master's, and then getting into administration certainly helped.
Right, it definitely did. Yeah.
Now, last question, because we're running out of time.
Okay.
So you're in a position of leadership and administration as a female in the sports world. What advice would you give to other young women who kind of want to work in sports and be a coach or be an AD, who kind of want to follow in your footsteps, so to speak?
I would say one thing I've always gone by is just work ethic, and you never know who's watching you. Just a matter of being the assistant coach. I didn't know that Jay Butler was even considering me, and he just called me up one day and said, you are one of my hardest working players, and I would like you to come be an assistant coach. And then in getting this administration job, I didn't know I was even, a thought. But Pat Thomas came to me one day and said, I like what you're doing with the women's basketball team and all that you do, and I feel you'll be a good fit. So just always keep that work ethic, because people are always watching you. That's
great advice, and you're doing a great job, and you are a great role model for the other women and men coming up the ranks. So
thank you.
Keep up the great work, and thanks very much for being with us on the show. And best of luck this spring in basketball, this winter in basketball.
Right, thank you.
That's all the time we have today. I'd like to thank our guests, UDC tennis coach Dickie Mahaffey, tennis student athlete Maxime Duijst, and assistant athletic director Robin Williams. Please don't forget to follow Firebird Athletics on the web at udcfirebirds.com, on Twitter at UDC Firebird Fans, and on Facebook at UDC Athletics. Thanks for watching the Firebird Nation Sports Update. I'm your host, Matt Rienzo. The Firebird is rising in the nation's capital, and we're glad you're along for the ride.